Tom, this is one of the favorite aspects of my job. You let me do a lot of things, but this I really enjoy and want to thank you for that.
I think the audience gets value out of it. There's learning that is taking place. The other thing, Bob, too, you think about all of the guests that you talked about, what do they represent? They represent a community.
So here we are. It's the end of the journey. The 2022 Connected Conversations season has wrapped up. So what I wanted to do was give basically a wrap up of what I learned by going on this journey. And who better to do this with than somebody who I see as a leader, a friend, a mentor, somebody I really respect and really am grateful for allowing me to go on this journey. And that's none other than Tom Stanford, the CEO of Nuvolo, is with us today to wrap up the first season of Connected Conversations. Tom, how are you?
Great, Bobby. Great to see you. And thank you so much. I feel like it's so special to get to do the season finale. I'm so excited to talk about the journey and just an amazing set of learning opportunities over the course of the last year or so. So thanks for having me, Bob.
Yeah, of course. So Tom, briefly, since we have you here, why don't you give us a quick little background on yourself?
So I'm Tom Stanford. I'm the founder and CEO of Nuvolo. On January 1st, I'm so proud to say we'll celebrate our 9th anniversary, sort of as a business. What an amazing journey and run that has been. We're as your audience probably knows, we're ServiceNow's largest and fastest growing ISV. We played an instrumental role in helping sort of build out the ISV infrastructure, and the whole built on ServiceNow brand. I'm so proud to say that we're a leader in that space, and it's been really exciting. And mostly the people and the relationships and the partners that we've been able to create over the years, and of course, the culmination of that is really sort of where we are from a connected workplace, perspective. An amazing brand, an amazing sort of fulfillment of our long-term vision for our company, Bob. And so, super excited about that, and so much more to come too.
And for me, what I'm most excited about from my journey, starting over 3 years ago, is how we've been able to become a part of the corporate real estate community, the workplace community, and be able to tap into a network of thought leaders to come onto the podcast and speak about what they see, trends in the industry, and how Nuvolo has really, from a brand perspective, have been able to ingrain ourselves in that corporate real estate and workplace community. This last year, we broke it up into, we had 2 seasons, season 1 and season 2, for a total of 12 episodes.
Yeah.
And you said it perfectly. So when I started with Kim Castle, she talked about keeping things simple. And then we brought in Chris Keene from VergeSense, and Kimberly was from CBRE. We brought in Chris Keene from VergeSense, and he talked about sensors, which had been a big topic,
sure.
During the pandemic and post-pandemic. And he talked about the use cases and how people really need to deploy sensors. Mm-hmm. From there, we met with Caroyln Cirillo from MillerKnoll. She does a lot of the research and insights for them, and she gets the data. And what she reported back was leaders are now investing in the workplace and now soliciting feedback on what they need from the workplace. Yeah. So it was very much, like you said, about reentry into the office. Then as the season went on, we met with Vik Bangia from Verum Consulting, and he started to talk about how leaders need to approach the workplace from a human perspective. Mm-hmm. Not so much command and control anymore, but being more of an empathetic leader to listen to their employees and really understand how they're feeling. Then we get to Kelly Colón, who's an amazing. She just released a book, as a matter of fact, and I'm halfway through the book. And she started to talk about how we just went through a shared traumatic event, and like everybody went through it. We need to understand our interactions with one another a little better, and why somebody was saying what they were saying or feeling what they were feeling, and that we all went through this together. And then the final episode of the season was my brother. My brother is very much into diversity and inclusion, and he's also a counselor. So he talked to us about things like people love the emotional backpack. This emotional backpack we carry with ourselves that have all these things that have gone on over the year, gets crammed into this backpack, and then we take that into the workplace, and how that needs to be contemplated, and how emotional pain can feel like physical.
Bob, that episode was particularly poignant, and to me, it was the logical sort of conclusion of a series of discussions. But this whole podcast series, especially season 1, it was the manifestation in so many ways of what was taking place in the world, which is why it was so relevant. Think about heads down in the foxhole. We're in the middle of crisis. No one can show up for work. What are the blocking and tackling things that I have to do? It's almost like survival mode, and trying to figure it out. And where did these models come from? We never had this before. Like, we were inventing and building models in the ecosystem day in while we were in the fight. And I think the podcast series and a lot of those conversations, captured that in such an important way. And then, of course, once things settle, and you have some basic blocking and tackling, that sort of next level conversation. How do we think about our employees? What are they dealing with at home? How do we make the workplace a positive experience? Think of it from a purely practical perspective. We have to make the workplace enticing and attractive, and people want to go there. There are so many considerations about that. So, so in so many ways, I think the podcast series and these discussions were so appropriate and so timely, because it was the manifestation of what was going on in the marketplace in a logical sequence.
What I came to learn from those first 6 episodes is people like the human aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through it. My life, very well, my life significantly changed during
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I work for you.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times did I call you with something personal, as opposed to, this is the deal we're working on, this is what's happening? How many times did I call you with something personal? And I was enabled to do that by the way we interacted with one another. And once we got to know each other, right, we had a bumpy start too. But
Bob, let me jump in, because I think this is so important for your audience, and I think people realize that, and that is one of the impacts. And I think you captured this, as well. And that is our personal lives and business lives. Now there's a full intersection of those things. It's hard. We think about the use of Zoom. People now, their living room or their bedroom is their office. Maybe not all the time, but some of the time. It's just a different world, and it requires a different set of thinking. And the folks that you had, the value is that they're sharing their experiences. They're knowledge workers in this context. They have a perspective, and it's based on lots of conversations and lots of interactions.
Exactly.
I don't want to invent the wheel, Bob. I'd rather use the wheel that someone else already invented. How do we learn, evolve, and even as solution providers in the marketplace, how do we help our customers sort of accelerate that journey? I think so much of these conversations added value in that context.
And the hardest thing is, a lot of times it wasn't us sitting across from one another at a dinner table or catching up at a corporate retreat or a conference. It was over a computer, over a virtual, and nobody knows what's going on in the background. And a lot of times over the pandemic, all hell was breaking loose for me. And I know a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you just don't know what's going on the other side of that computer screen. And then here me and you are talking about something, and it's like,
and everybody. And listen, that's the human side of that. And we evolved, especially those of us that are deep in the space. For both of us, we're fully committed. We have become more understanding, more empathetic, more plugged into the needs of our employees. And any responsible leadership team or CEO that's not doing that, his or her employees will vote with their feet. They'll, this is now for leadership thinking about the workplace, thinking about how do we create the most productive hybrid work environment we can, thinking about providing flexibility and extensibility. All these things we talked about, we covered, like the context. These are mandatory requirements for leadership, and that's why I think this content and this discussion, this conversation, and all the conversations you had. And by the way, we're so grateful for the domain experts that had a chance to come on board and participate. And I just want to use this forum to say thank you to all of them. And I know there are a whole bunch in season 2. We're incredibly appreciative of that. I think their insights are incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, how gracious everybody was with their time, their willingness, their enthusiasm to follow up afterwards. When we were just at Coronet, we had so many people come up to us and really extend their gratitude for having a platform for their voice, but also saying, they felt like it was necessary. And something that was really valuable for them as well. And we just really appreciate, which is a perfect segue into season 2.
Yeah.
So what we did with season 2 was we looked for thought leaders, and we wanted folks to tell us, okay, we just went through what me and you discussed, this global traumatic event. Then what we really wanted to do was focus on, okay, we did that. What's the future now? So we took thought leaders in certain specific areas, and we kept them in their lane, and they talked on that. We started the season with Anya Ostry, and I cannot say enough good things about Anya.
Amazing.
That episode was one of our most successful episodes. She's a commercial broker for CBRE, and she just blew everybody away. She blew everybody away about how her take on where commercial real estate was going. She talked about market segments. She talked about Class A office space. She talked about different geographies, different standards coming into the industry. And really, it was just a phenomenon. She
really knows her stuff. It was an amazing session, really, especially the segmentation piece. Like it was, I think your audience got a lot of value out of that, but she was a great guest.
The numbers prove that. The numbers prove that. I mean, she just really, really did a great job. Then we moved to Robert Teed, who talked about the future of leadership.
Yeah.
And coming from a workplace real estate background, perfect person to talk about this stuff. And he echoed a lot of those sentiments we saw in the first season about being a leader who listens, coming up with, now I'm going to gas you up a little bit here, Tom, so hang on. Being a leader who approaches problems from a collaborative standpoint.
Yes, sir.
I don't know anybody better than you who does that. I've been on phone calls where you draw in multiple people from multiple departments and you say, this is the problem. And you go around the room. And I've been on calls where I haven't yet spoken and you've stopped and you said, Bobby, what do you think of this?
Bobby, I think part of that is we have, like you, we have a lot of people at Nuvolo who are a lot smarter than me. And that's really the best way to make decisions. And listen, that's why people work here. That's why people want to be part of the Nuvolo family. And, we think it's super empowering. And of course, no one personifies that better than Robert. And Robert Teed, he's a great industry person, a good friend, and was an amazing guest too. So. Yeah.
And I just want to say it's something that people can take away. And even from this episode,
you bet.
That's the type of leaders we need. It's not leading with a heavy hand.
Bobby, just to follow up on that, I think it's super important. We're not out of the woods yet. This is evolving, and I will tell you, it's very interesting as I think about it. What's going to happen here? Here we are in December, right? It's the end of the year. It's going to be quieter for the next couple of weeks. But what's going to happen? A couple of important things in January. You're going to see more and more mandates for participation back at the office. You're going to see more pressure on payroll and employment in tech. There's going to be more disciplined reviews of real estate portfolios and space allocations and space types. And, they go in hand, right? We want everyone to come back 2 or 3 days a week, but Are we creating a really rewarding and positive work environment for them? And is it going to be meaningful? And what are the impacts of that? So it's still the Wild West, out there. So it's going to be interesting. We have to keep our foot on the gas and continue to listen. We don't have all the answers. Forums like this allow us to assimilate lots of points of view. I think we got to keep doing that.
And we'll get to that with our final guest from this season. You touched on everything that she talked about, but we'll get to that in a minute. And then from there, we had Lauren Long. Lauren Long is somebody who I've worked with in the past. She's been in the property tech industry for a long time. And we were talking about marketing and marketing in the property tech space and just marketing in general. And her message was, you have to be very thoughtful. And that's a word you use a lot, thoughtful and authentic in the way in which you market your company, your brand, your product. It's not something it can't always be a sales pitch.
Yeah.
And there needs to be an element of authenticity, thought leadership, and you providing something to your customer prospects and your community at large. So I really enjoyed that conversation.
Really good session. And she's right. The market has changed and customers are going to be more discerning, more selective, more thoughtful, right? And so I think she's spot on.
And then this is the next episode was the guy that I had always wanted to have on the podcast, somebody I've looked up to for a long time, and that's Ryan Anderson. And you got a chance to meet Ryan Anderson in Chicago at his event.
I felt like I was meeting Mick Jagger, by the way, from a real estate.
I mean, I was too. I've been reposting and consuming his content for years. And what I wanted to do with Ryan was, Ryan, what's the future of thought leadership? And how do you approach social media and LinkedIn and getting your message out there without sounding like somebody who's just using buzzwords and who's just trying to, the kids say gain clout on LinkedIn. And what he was telling me was his content creation process is thoughtful. He'll take something that he reads and he'll think on it for weeks, months, before he ever even posts anything on it. Mm-hmm. And he comes up with his thoughts and his feelings on it. And also behind Ryan, he has a whole team that does analytics and research that he's able to surface in his content that's in support of what he does and the MillerKnoll brand as well. And the last thing I took away from him, and this is what I said to him, I said, Ryan, I don't care where you work. I'm going to consume your content, whatever company you work at, because I believe in the Ryan Anderson brand.
Yeah.
And that's because he comes from a place of credibility.
Yeah. He dots I's and crosses T's. And I think that's, you think about this concept of social media, sort of validated content, you can count on it. There's a certain amount of trust. And Bobby, this is abundant now in our space. Experts, right? Tell me why you're an expert.
Because they branded themselves an expert, and that's what Ryan never did.
Right, exactly. Folks like Ryan, they are experts. You can trust.
We call him experts. It's not because he says, "Look at me, I'm the expert."
No, I know, but he earns that moniker, right? He earns that moniker. Yeah. So that was it was great to have an opportunity to meet him and a super thoughtful interaction. But I think a great guest and really added a lot of value. So.
And then from there, the 5th episode of that season was Simon Davis. You cannot, in the workplace of Purposeful Intent, you can't have a podcast, you can't have an event without Simon Davis in attendance or contributing to it. He's been around forever. Me and Simon go way back. We have a lot of history together. We've helped each other out here or there. And Simon has a great way of giving a hot take without it coming off as arrogant. I think what Simon is trying to do with his Purposeful Intent, and if nobody has been to one of these events, I recommend you going. What he's doing with his events and what he does with his content and his thoughts that he puts out there is a very straight ahead. I think he has a big frustration with the way people approach technology, the way they gather the requirements for technology, and the way they ultimately implement technology to where they're not soliciting feedback from end users, they're not soliciting feedback from employers.
They're talking over people's heads. It's it's the classic symptoms. Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
And he just really comes in with a really good take on this stuff. And again, through his Purposeful Intent conference series, I mean, he's listening to the experts on a regular basis, and he's bringing in all the heads of workplace from diverse verticals. And it was really interesting to hear his take. At the end of the day, the biggest thing I took away from that episode was just not soliciting enough feedback from the people who are going to benefit from or ultimately use the things that are being put in place.
So, and Bobby, it's in what we do today, it's more important than ever. So there's two. One, I'm very grateful for his participation, but I think I'm going to spend a lot of time with you. I think you've learned a lot from him, and all of us benefit from that. So one, really appreciate him coming on and participating and sharing this whole sort of purposeful insight that he provides. And also, I think he's been a great mentor, and teacher for you. And of course, Nuvolo and all of our constituents benefit from that. So super appreciative of that in both areas.
And now, which leads us to our final episode, which was, man, this was very serendipitous, is the way it's one of my favorite words. But I was actually speaking to an industry colleague of mine and asking him to go on the podcast. And he said, well, I'll do it, but I have somebody else in mind. And that's Carrie Aldridge from CBRE. And Carrie Aldridge works for Susan Wassman, who heads up GWS, Global Workplace Services at CBRE, where they're most concerned with space planning in the workplace, and gathering the insights to deliver to the prospects, customers, industry. CBRE doesn't charge for this report. Yeah. It's the annual Workplace Insights report. That's not the exact term for it, but we've posted the link. We've shared it out multiple times. But Carrie gathers all this information, and she has the data. That's the nice thing about Caroyln Cirillo, Ryan Anderson, and Carrie Aldridge. We have people who have actual data that comes from the workplace experts, that come from the people who are actively.
No hyperbole, Bob. No hyperbole, just the facts. And I think that's super important.
None. And what we found out, and the timing was great because we did the podcast and then the report came out. And I was at a conference and I listened to, again, Kim Castle, our friend who referenced the report. And it was very, very serendipitous to conclude the year with this report, with one of the authors of the report. And I couldn't be more grateful to have her. And what we found out in this episode, and this goes back to what you were kind of already going there about 5 minutes ago, to where what's changed in the workplace is understanding how the workplace is being used and really understanding truly what the word utilization means. Yeah. And utilization sometimes gets interchanged with allocation. That's not the case. And that's the way I used to plan space. This department has this many seats. So that means the building is 100% allocated based on these departments. Now, corporations need to understand how well their buildings, their portfolios, their floors are being utilized. Yes. How many people are walking through the door? Where are they going in the building? How much time are they spending there? What spaces are the correct?
Are they having a positive experience? Right.
Yes.
Right.
And again, there's a lot of gratitude coming out of this podcast, but to be able to speak to the author of that, I've read that report for years. Every year it comes out, I read it, I look at the graph, I got to look at the pictures. So I look at the graphs, I look at the pictures, I pull them out, I send it to the junior sales reps and say, hey, when you're talking to your prospects or your customers, reference this, ask them this is true for them, use it, share it. Say, hey, I read this. What do you think about this? Is this
Bobby,
true?
Nowadays, of course, and it's so timely, again, for the content and for the podcast and for her as a guest, it's so timely because the report has never been more important than it is right now, new models, new vision, new thoughts, you're right, intensive sort of experience. And so, I think the timing was amazing, and I think just added a lot of tremendous value there as well.
So that concludes the 2 seasons of 2022. First and foremost, I want to thank you, for allowing me to do this, allowing me to share my 20 years of contacts and experience and creating this Connected Conversations podcast that's resonated with a lot of people. And that's not me. I'm not blowing smoke. I always try to end my podcasts with some form of gratitude towards my guests, because a lot of them I've known for years. So I want to thank you for enabling us to do this, allow us to put the Nuvolo brand on it, and really getting behind something. Tom, this is one of the favorite aspects of my job. You let me do a lot of things, but this I really enjoy. I want to thank you for that.
No, Bobby, and it's my pleasure. And we enjoy it, and I think the audience gets value out of it. There's learning that is taking place. The other thing, Bob, too, you think about all of the guests that you talked about. What do they represent? They represent a community, and you talk about this all the time, right? From many of these people you've known for years, some cases, more than a decade. And for us at Nuvolo, we have staked our brand on the connected workplace. This is what we do. It's not just what we do, it's who we are, and we understand the implications of that. And we were going to work hard every single day. This podcast and this commitment, this ecosystem of guests should give everyone an indication of what our long-term commitment is to building connected workplace, being part of the community. I think these things are amazing and a great way to reach people and to inform and to help. And so thank you, Bobby, for all that you do, and your guests as well. We're very, very, very appreciative of all the folks that came on, gave their time, and participated as part of this process. So special thank you to them as well.
So before I talk about the future of this podcast in 23, we got a new theme for the 3rd season that we're going to be launching as January rolls around. Tom, what can we expect in 23 for the Nuvolo brand?
This for us, this is the realization now of 2 years of intense listening, 2 years of innovation, 2 years of sort of product development in this new sort of operating climate. And I don't think one of the things we've done, I think, exceptionally well is kept our ear to the ground, stayed focused on our mission. And so the completion of the build out of the connected workplace, the ability to offer our clients and our partners, a seamless connected workplace solution, a seamless connected workplace experience. Bobby, right at the same time, people are out of the foxhole now. They now can focus on planning, on thinking about 2023 and 24, on did the tactical solutions and capabilities that they sort of thought about in 20 and 21, are some of those going to work, or are they going to have to evolve and think about more? We're going to help them answer those questions. We're going to listen intently to them, and we're going to really work to deliver a world-class connected workplace capability to the marketplace. But for 2023, Bob, it's the realization of what has been a 2.5-year sprint to be able to offer, modern IWMS, full connected workplace on a single platform built on ServiceNow, and I'm super excited, about the year ahead. And I think just, on a human level, on a personal level, we're going to be able to make the workplace experience better for people, simpler for people. If our customers and our partners' vision is, how do we make that workplace experience meaningful? We should be able to contribute to that. And I think if we do, we'll be successful, so super excited about the year ahead and, getting back as close to normal, Bobby, as possible. So that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most.
Terrific. So for everybody who's joined along on this, I can't thank you enough. For all the guests, for everybody who sent me a message, for everybody who stopped me at a trade show, thank you so much. This has been a very fulfilling thing for me to embark on, take on. There's a level of vulnerability there it requires, and I just really appreciate the community and everything that we've been able to build this year. So with that said, in 23, we're going to kick off the third season, and what we're going to do is take it back to the human element, and our guests will be challenged with what is their why. Why do they do what they do? I want to get out of tactical conversations around what technology solutions are right, what do we need to do about hybrid work? I want to hear about the people. I want to hear about why they get up every day and are passionate about corporate real estate or the workplace. For me, it's been a 20-year journey, something I've invested my time, energy in. I've built a lot of friends. I've built a lot of relationships. And at the end of the day, I've been able to help a lot of large companies with some very big brands out there. I can name drop with the best of them. I've helped them succeed, and I've had people say, thank you. We did it, even though whether it's technology, a consulting service, or in the practical sense of just helping somebody in the workplace way back when I was a facility planner. But that's going to be our season 3, what is your why? And we're going to really get into it with some folks. So with that said, I'm Bob Mostachetti. This is Connected Conversations. Season 1 and 2 of 2022 are over. I wish everybody a happy and healthy holiday season. This is Tom Stanford, the CEO of Nuvolo. He allowed us to do this. He provided us this ability to create this platform. We're grateful for him. And I just, again, want to wish everybody happy holidays and thank you for coming along with us on this journey. Again, Connected Conversations. I'm Bob Mostachetti, and I'll see you on the interwebs in 2023.